Have you ever started something feeling excited and confident only to stop halfway through? Maybe you planned to learn a new skill, bought the books, watched the videos, and then slowly drifted away. Maybe you began writing, designing, building, or creating something meaningful, but today it sits unfinished. Not because you lacked talent, not because you were lazy, but because somehow you never reached the end. If your life feels full of things you once cared about but never completed, this story is for you. Because it is not about motivation, it is not about discipline, and it is not about talent. It is about something deeper that most people never learn. This is the story of a man who started many things and finished none of them, until one moment forced him to understand what was really holding him back. And once he learned that lesson, everything changed. Stay with me, because by the end of this story, you may see your unfinished projects in a completely different way. And more importantly, you may finally understand what it actually takes to finish what you start. In a quiet village, surrounded by green hills, there lived a young carpenter named Marcus. He was skilled with his hands and full of ideas, the kind of person who could see beauty where others saw nothing. But Marcus carried a quiet burden that followed him every day. He could not finish what he started. His workshop told the story better than words ever could. A chair missing a leg, a table without a surface, a cabinet with no doors. Each piece showed promise, yet none were complete. When people asked when the work would be ready, Marcus always answered with hope. Soon, but soon never arrived. He did not lack ability. He lacked completion. Each new idea felt exciting. Each beginning felt fresh. But as the work moved forward and the excitement faded, his focus drifted. Another idea would appear, and the unfinished piece would be left behind. At night, Marcus lay awake, thinking about all the things he had started but never finished. The weight of those unfinished projects pressed on him quietly, and he wondered, in silence, why finishing felt so impossible. One spring morning, Marcus was given an opportunity that felt impossible to ignore. The mayor's daughter was preparing for her wedding and wanted a handcrafted wooden chest, something meaningful, something unique. She visited Marcus' workshop and saw his unfinished pieces. Even incomplete, they showed clear talent and care. She believed in what he could create. She offered fair payment and gave him 3 months. For Marcus, this felt like a turning point. This would be the project that proved he could finish. He accepted without hesitation. At first, everything went well. He worked with energy and focus. The wood was carefully shaped. The details were thoughtful and precise. People who passed by said this would be his finest work. But then something familiar happened. Marcus discovered a new design in a book. Just a small idea, just something quick. Days passed, then weeks. The chest waited quietly as new projects appeared. Time moved forward faster than Marcus expected. When the wedding day arrived, the chest remained unfinished. No lid, no lock, only potential. Standing in his workshop, Marcus realized that the opportunity he had waited for was gone. The wedding bells rang in the distance. As Marcus stood alone in his workshop, another carpenter had completed the chest. The opportunity had passed. Marcus did not only lose the payment or the work, he lost something deeper. He lost trust in himself. Surrounded by unfinished pieces, he sat down on the floor. For the first time, he allowed himself to stop pretending everything would work out. Tears came not from one failure, but from years of repeating the same pattern. He looked at his hands, hands capable of creating beautiful beginnings, hands that rarely delivered finished results. That night, Marcus made a decision not to start something new, but to seek understanding. At the edge of the village lived an old master carpenter named Samuel. Known for his precision and quiet wisdom, Marcus walked to his workshop carrying more frustration than hope. Samuel opened the door and saw everything. Without a single question, he invited Marcus inside. The workshop was simple and orderly. Every tool had its place. At the center stood a small wooden stool, perfectly finished. In that quiet room, Marcus finally spoke the truth. He had ideas, he had skill, but he could not finish what he started. Samuel did not answer right away. Instead, he picked up a small block of wood and began carving slowly. Each movement was calm and deliberate. After a moment, he looked at Marcus and spoke. "Inside this piece of wood is something useful, but it cannot appear all at once. It only appears when you stay with the process." Samuel explained that every project has 3 stages. The beginning feels exciting, the ending feels rewarding, but the middle is quiet and difficult. That is where most people stop, not because they are incapable, but because the work no longer feels new. Finishing is not about waiting for motivation. Motivation fades. Finishing is about showing up even when nothing feels exciting. Samuel placed the wood in Marcus' hands and gave him a simple rule. Choose one small project, touch it every day. Even 10 minutes is enough. That lesson would change Marcus' life. If this idea already feels familiar to you, take a moment to pause. Think about one small thing you have left unfinished. If this story is helping you reflect, consider leaving a like or sharing it with someone who may need to hear it today. Marcus returned home that night, holding the carved wood carefully, not as a tool, but as a reminder. He stood in his workshop and looked at the many unfinished projects around him. For the first time, he did not feel the urge to start something new. Instead, he chose the smallest and simplest piece, a small wooden stool that had been waiting for months. The next morning, before excuses could form, Marcus worked on the stool for 10 minutes. Nothing more, nothing less. It was not exciting. There was no sudden inspiration, but the work was honest. The following day, he returned for another 10 minutes, then another day, then another. Some days, he wanted to stop. Some days, new ideas tried to pull his attention away. But each time he returned to the stool, slowly something changed. Not in the wood, but in Marcus. For the first time in a long while, he felt calm instead of rushed, focused instead of scattered. He was no longer chasing new beginnings. He was learning how to stay with one thing until it moved closer to finished. As the days passed, Marcus noticed something unexpected. The work did not become easier, but his resistance became quieter. Some days he worked for only 10 minutes. Other days, once he began, he stayed longer without forcing himself. The important thing was that he returned every day. By the second week, the stool was nearly complete. For the first time in years, Marcus could clearly see the end of a project. That simple sight changed how he felt. He felt pride, not the excitement of starting, but the quiet pride of continuing. When the surface was smoothed, and the last layer was applied, the stool was finished. Marcus placed it in the center of the workshop and sat down. It held his weight perfectly. The stool was simple, but it was complete. In that moment, Marcus understood something important. He was not incapable. He was not broken. He had simply never learned how to finish. That small success did more than complete a piece of furniture. It changed how Marcus saw himself. For the first time, he believed that finishing was possible. After finishing the stool, Marcus did not rush to start something new. Instead, he chose another small project, then another. Each time, he followed the same rule. He returned to the work every day, even when progress felt slow. Weeks passed then. Months. The workshop slowly changed. The scattered beginnings were replaced by completed pieces. Not because Marcus worked harder, but because he stayed longer. 6 months later, the mayor's daughter returned. She had heard about the change in Marcus' work. She asked if he could now complete the wooden chest for their anniversary. Marcus smiled, calm and confident. He accepted the request without urgency, and this time he finished. Marcus' story is not only about carpentry, it is about learning a skill many people were never taught, the skill of finishing. If this story feels familiar, take a quiet moment after this video. Look at one small thing you have left unfinished. You do not need to fix everything. Just choose one and stay with it. If this message resonates with you, staying connected here may help you continue that journey. What changed Marcus' life was not a sudden breakthrough. It was a quiet shift in how he approached his work. He no longer waited to feel inspired. He no longer chased every new idea. Instead, he learned to respect the middle of the process, the part that feels slow, the part that feels ordinary. Marcus understood that discomfort was not a sign of failure. It was a sign of progress. Finishing did not mean perfection. It meant staying long enough for something useful to exist. Over time, each completed project strengthened his confidence. Not confidence in his talent, but confidence in his reliability. He learned that starting is easy, finishing is rare, and rarity gives value. Marcus' workshop became a reflection of his new mindset, clearer, calmer, more intentional. This is the lesson at the heart of his story. Finishing is not something you are born knowing how to do. It is something you practice. And like any practice, it grows stronger each time you return, even on days when the work feels small and unremarkable. What changed Marcus' life was not a sudden breakthrough. It was a quiet shift in how he approached his work. He no longer waited to feel inspired. He no longer chased every new idea. Instead, he learned to respect the middle of the process, the part that feels slow, the part that feels ordinary. Marcus understood that discomfort was not a sign of failure. It was a sign of progress. Finishing did not mean perfection. It meant staying long enough for something useful to exist. Over time, each completed project strengthened his confidence. Not confidence in his talent, but confidence in his reliability. He learned that starting is easy, finishing is rare, and rarity gives value. Marcus' workshop became a reflection of his new mindset, clearer, calmer, more intentional. This is the lesson at the heart of his story. Finishing is not something you are born knowing how to do. It is something you practice. And like any practice, it grows stronger each time you return, even on days when the work feels small and unremarkable.